The evening sky draped over Charlotte in hues of indigo and violet, the city's neon pulse flickering to life as the sun sank below the skyline. Darlene Harper sat in her plush living room, her fingers gliding across her tablet, the soft glow illuminating her face. The distant hum of a late-night talk show buzzed from the television, a comforting murmur against the quiet. At 47, Darlene was a woman of poise, her auburn hair cascading in loose waves, her figure still turning heads in her tailored yoga pants and silk blouse. She was a freelance interior designer, her days spent weaving elegance into the homes of Charlotte's elite. But tonight, her mind wasn't on fabric swatches or mood boards. It was on the faint sounds drifting from upstairs. She glanced at the clock, 10:17 p.m. The sprawling colonial-style house was still save for those muffled noises coming from Elliot's room. Elliot, her stepson, was 23, a graphic designer who worked remotely from his attic studio. He'd been distant lately, retreating into his world of sketches and screens. Curiosity tugged at Darlene, a whisper of concern laced with something she couldn't name. She set her tablet aside, her bare feet silent on the hardwood as she moved toward the staircase. The oak steps creaked faintly under her weight, the house settling into its nocturnal rhythm. As she reached the second floor, the sounds grew clearer, soft, rhythmic, unmistakable. Elliot's door was ajar, a sliver of light spilling into the dim hallway. Darlene paused, her breath catching. She should knock, call out anything to announce her presence, but her hand hovered, and before she could retreat, she nudged the door open. The sight stopped her cold. Elliot sat on his bed, his lean frame propped against the headboard, his laptop casting a stark glow across his sharp features. His dark hair was tousled, his hazel eyes fixed on the screen. The images flickering there were raw, explicit, an adult film, the kind that stripped away pretense. His hand moved beneath the blanket, his breath uneven, his face flushed with a mix of focus and shame. Darlene's heart slammed against her ribs, a cocktail of shock and heat flooding her veins. "Elliot," she said, her voice a soft fracture in the silence. He jolted his head, whipping toward her eyes wide with panic. The laptop snapped shut with a thud, his hands fumbling to pull the blanket higher as if it could erase what she'd seen. "Darlene, I didn't hear you," he stammered, his cheeks blazing crimson. She stepped inside, closing the door behind her, the click loud in the charged air. Her arms crossed over her chest, not in judgment, but to steady herself. "What are you doing?" she asked, though the answer hung between them like a guillotine. Elliot's gaze dropped his fingers, twisting the blanket's edge. I was just..." His voice faltered, unable to conjure a lie. "It's okay," Darlene said, her tone softer than she intended, cutting through his panic. "You don't have to explain. I know what you were doing." Silence descended thick and suffocating. Elliot's shoulders hunched, his embarrassment palpable. But Darlene felt something else, a strange warmth coiling in her core, a pulse of curiosity she couldn't shake. She moved to the bed, perching on its edge, her silk blouse brushing against her skin. "Elliot, do you want to talk about it?" she asked, her voice low, almost maternal, but edged with something dangerous. He hesitated, his jaw tight. "I'm just nervous," he admitted, barely audible. "About Mia. We've been together a while and she wants more, but I don't know what I'm doing. I'm terrified I'll screw it up." Darlene's heart softened, but her mind raced. Mia, his girlfriend of 6 months, was a vibrant barista with a laugh that filled rooms. She nodded, resting a hand on his shoulder, the contact electric. "It's normal to feel that way, Elliot. Everyone's nervous their first time. It's a big step." He looked up, his eyes searching hers, raw with vulnerability. "What if I'm awful? What if she's disappointed?" A chuckle escaped her, low and warm. "You're overthinking it. Be yourself. Talk to her. Listen to her. Take it slow. It's not about perfection. It's about connection." Her fingers lingered, her touch, a quiet anchor. Elliot nodded, but doubt clouded his gaze. I just wish I knew what to expect. I don't want to let her down. Darlene's chest tightened, a maternal instinct warring with something bolder, more reckless. She stood smoothing her blouse, her mind a storm of conflicting urges. You'll figure it out, she said, her voice steady despite the chaos within. Trust yourself. She left the room, closing the door softly, and leaned against the hallway wall, her pulse racing. The image of Elliot flushed vulnerable, caught in a private moment, burned behind her eyes. She wanted to help him to ease his fears. But how far was too far? Back in the living room, she sank onto the couch. The TV's chatter now a distant drone. Her thoughts churned a dangerous plan taking shape. She couldn't just stand by. She had to act. The days that followed were a dance of tension. Elliot's confession lingered, an unspoken weight that colored every glance, every fleeting touch. Darlene watched him closely, his nervous fidgeting at breakfast, his distracted stares out the window. She'd married George Elliot's father 5 years ago, stepping into a role that was part mother, part friend. At 62, George was a retired accountant kind, but often absent his evenings spent at the golf club or buried in financial journals. Their marriage was comfortable, predictable, but lacked the spark Darlene craved. Now faced with Elliot's insecurities, she felt a pull to bridge the gap, to guide him in ways that pushed boundaries. One evening, as she chopped vegetables in the kitchen, her mind wandered. Elliot sprawled on the living room couch, scrolling through his phone, his leg bouncing restlessly. Darlene set down her knife, wiping her hands on a towel. She'd been subtle so far, but it was time to test the waters. She'd started wearing tighter clothes around the house, leggings that hugged her curves, blouses that dipped low at the neckline. Tonight she wore a fitted black dress, its hem teasing her thighs, her perfume a soft veil of jasmine. Elliot, she called, leaning against the doorway, her voice a gentle lure. He looked up, startled. Yeah, you okay? You've been quiet. She stepped closer, her heels clicking softly. He shrugged, avoiding her gaze. Just thinking about stuff. She sat beside him, close enough that her knee brushed his. Is this about Mia? About what we talked about. Her hand rested on his shoulder, a deliberate touch. Elliot hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, I can't stop worrying about it. It's all I think about. Her fingers tightened slightly, a reassuring squeeze. You can't let it consume you. You'll figure it out when the time comes. But her words felt hollow. She wanted to do more to give him confidence in a way words couldn't. That night, as she lay in bed, her plans solidified. It was bold, risky, but necessary. She'd start small, gauge his reactions, and build from there. Over the next week, Darlene's behavior shifted. She wore a silk robe that clung to her skin, leaving the bathroom door cracked during her showers, the steam carrying her scent into the hall. Elliot's glances lingered, his cheeks flushing when she caught him looking. She accidentally sent him a link to an adult video, claiming it was for a client watching, as he fumbled his phone, his face scarlet. Each interaction stoked the fire between them, a dangerous game of push and pull. Elliot was flustered, but intrigued, his eyes tracing her curves when he thought she wasn't looking. Darlene felt the shift, the barriers crumbling, and knew it was time for the next step. One morning, as Elliot sat at the kitchen island, picking at a bowl of cereal, Darlene poured her coffee, her silk robe loosely tied. There's a new French bistro downtown, she said, leaning against the counter, her legs crossed. Everyone's talking about it. Come with me tonight. It'll be fun, a little dinner date. Elliot's brows shot up, his spoon pausing mid-air. A dinner date? She shrugged, casual but deliberate. We haven't hung out in a while. It'll be nice to catch up. Her smile was warm, inviting. He hesitated, his eyes flickering over her robe. I guess I could. Perfect. 7 o'clock. Be ready. She set her mug in the sink, her movements slow, and walked upstairs. her heart pounding. The first move was made. That evening, Darlene stood before her mirror, her reflection bold in a crimson dress that hugged her hips and dipped low at the neckline. The fabric flared at her thighs, daring but elegant, paired with strappy heels and a delicate gold necklace. Her makeup was striking smoky eyes, a bold red lip. She let her hair fall in loose waves, a cascade of auburn that framed her face. Satisfied, she descended the stairs. Elliot waited in the living room, dressed in a fitted blazer and dark jeans, his nervous energy palpable. His eyes widened when he saw her. "You look incredible," he said, his voice catching. "Thank you," she replied, her smile soft but knowing. "Let's go." The drive to the bistro was quiet, the air thick with tension. At the restaurant, a hostess led them to a candlelit table in a secluded corner, the soft jazz weaving an intimate spell. Darlene sat crossing her legs slowly, her dress riding up to reveal a glimpse of thigh. She caught Elliot's glance, his cheeks reddening as he looked away. They ordered coq au vin for her steak frites for him and made small talk, but Elliot's tension was evident, his shoulders stiff. Darlene leaned forward, her neckline offering a subtle tease, and brushed her foot against his leg under the table. He froze, his eyes darting to hers, before dropping to his plate. "Elliot," she said, her voice a velvet caress. "I'm here for you. Whatever you're going through, you can talk to me." He nodded, his voice tight. "I know. It's just hard to talk about." She reached across the table, her hand covering his, her touch warm. "You don't have to go through it alone." His breath hitched, his eyes locked on their hands. "Darlene, excuse me," she interrupted, standing smoothly. "I need to use the restroom." She walked away, her hips swaying, and slipped into the bathroom. There she took a deep breath, her pulse racing. She reached under her dress, sliding off her lace panties and tucking them into her clutch. A quick touch-up of her lipstick, and she returned to the table. Sitting down, she pulled the folded panties from her clutch and slid them across the table. "Keep these," she said, her voice low, her eyes locked on his. "They're yours now." Elliot stared, his face flaming, his mouth opening, but no words emerging. Darlene sipped her wine, her composure unshaken, signaling the waiter for the check. The night was just beginning. The restaurant's air crackled with unspoken promises as Darlene and Elliot sat across from each other, the folded panties a bold declaration between them. Elliot's hands shook as he reached for his water, his throat tight, his mind a whirlwind. He couldn't look at the delicate lace, nor at Darlene, whose calm gaze held a storm of intent. Her crimson dress clung to her like a second skin, her every movement a deliberate tease. At 47, she was a vision of confidence, her auburn hair catching the candlelight, her lips curved in a knowing smile. Darlene sipped her wine, her eyes tracing Elliot's flushed features. She saw the conflict, desire warring with fear, curiosity battling shame. It was what she'd planned, but the stakes were high. One wrong move could unravel everything. The waiter returned with the check, and Darlene paid with a generous tip, her movements graceful as she stood. Ready to go, she asked, her voice a soft command. Elliot nodded, his motions jerky as he rose. He hesitated, then grabbed the panties, shoving them into his pocket, his face burning. They left the bistro, the cool Charlotte night a sharp contrast to the heat inside. Darlene's heels clicked against the pavement, a steady rhythm that matched Elliot's racing pulse. He fumbled with the car keys, holding the door open for her, his hands trembling. She slid into the passenger seat, crossing her legs slowly, the dress inching higher to reveal a tantalizing glimpse of thigh. Elliot's eyes flickered toward her before snapping back, his breath uneven as he climbed in. The drive home was silent, the tension a living thing. Darlene watched him from the corner of her eye, his knuckles white on the steering wheel, his jaw clenched. "Elliot," she said, her voice breaking the quiet. He flinched. "Yeah, you're awfully quiet. Something on your mind?" Her tone was teasing her fingers, brushing his thigh, light but deliberate. He shook his head, his voice strained. Just thinking about the food. It was good. She chuckled low and melodic, leaning back. At a red light, she uncrossed her legs. The movements slow her dress shifting to reveal a hint of what lay beneath. Elliot's breath caught his eyes, darting to her before he forced them back to the road, his face scarlet. Darlene let the moment linger, playful yet intense, her silence a challenge. When they pulled into the driveway, Elliot cut the engine, his hands still gripping the wheel, his breathing shallow. Darlene unbuckled her seatbelt, turning to face him. "Thank you for tonight," she said, her voice warm. "I had a wonderful time." "Me too," he mumbled, avoiding her gaze. She reached over, tilting his chin to meet her eyes. "You don't have to be afraid, Elliot. I'm here for you. Whatever you're feeling, you can talk to me." Her tone was firm, reassuring. He stared, his eyes a tumult of emotions, fear, desire, confusion. He opened his mouth, but no words came. Darlene leaned in, pressing a soft kiss to his cheek, her breath warm against his skin. "Let's go inside," she said, stepping out, her heels sharp against the pavement. Elliot followed, his mind a storm, the house's familiar walls now charged with new energy. Darlene set her clutch on the entryway table, turning to him. "Why don't we sit for a while? We can talk." Her voice was soft but expectant. He hesitated, his heart pounding. "Okay," he whispered. She led him to the living room, stopping at the bar cart to pour 2 glasses of whiskey. Bending deliberately, her dress rode up, offering a fleeting glimpse of her curves. Elliot's breath hitched, his face flushing as he looked away. She handed him a glass, their fingers brushing, and sat on the couch. Her legs crossed the dress, revealing the smooth curve of her thigh. She patted the space beside her, her eyes locked on his. Elliot sat, leaving a small gap, his gaze fixed on the floor. The panties in his pocket burned a reminder of the line they were crossing. Darlene leaned forward, her hand brushing his leg. "Look at me," she said, her voice gentle. He turned, his eyes wide, vulnerable. She placed her hand over his, her touch warm. "You don't have to be scared. I'm here for you." "I don't know what to say," he admitted, his voice trembling. "You don't have to say anything," she replied, shifting closer, her leg brushing his. "Just listen." Her movements were deliberate, heightening the tension. She uncrossed her legs, the dress riding higher, then recrossed them slow and tantalizing. Elliot's eyes flickered to her, his face crimson. She leaned in, her lips grazing his ear. "Do you trust me?" "Yes," he whispered, his body trembling. Her hand moved to his thigh, her touch light but firm. Then without warning, she kissed him. The kiss was slow, deliberate, her lips soft and warm. Elliot froze, shock rooting him, but then he melted into it, his hands trembling as they found her waist. Darlene's fingers brushed his shoulders, pulling him closer, the kiss deepening with unspoken promises. She guided his hands to her hips, teaching him to touch with intention. "Follow my lead," she whispered, her breath mingling with his. His fingers trailed over her dress, feeling the heat beneath, his heart racing. The kiss grew bolder, Elliot's hands exploring her curves, losing himself in the moment. After a while, Darlene pulled back, her lips brushing his cheek. "Just a moment," she said, standing gracefully. She walked to the bathroom, leaving Elliot trembling, his mind spinning. When she returned, she wore a black lace nightie, the delicate fabric clinging to her curves, leaving little to the imagination. She leaned against the doorframe, her arms crossed, her expression confident. "Do you like what you see?" she asked, her voice teasing. Elliot's breath caught, his eyes wide. "Yes," he whispered, speechless. She walked toward him, stopping close, tilting his chin to meet her gaze. "Good," she said, her lips brushing his ear. She stepped back, her smile commanding. "Patience," she murmured, as his hands reached for her. Turning, she walked to the hallway, glancing over her shoulder. "Come with me." Elliot followed, his heart pounding, her hips swaying in the lace nightie. In her bedroom, she faced him, the bedside lamp casting a warm glow. "Come in," she said, closing the door. Her hands rested on his chest, feeling his racing heart. "Are you nervous?" she asked, her tone probing. A little, he admitted, his voice barely audible. "We'll take it slow," she said, kissing him slow and deep. She led him to the bed, straddling him, her hands on his chest. "Let me show you," she whispered, guiding his hands, teaching him to touch with confidence. The night unfolded in a blur of sensations, soft touches, whispered guidance, and deliberate intimacy. When it was over, they lay entwined, Darlene's head on his chest, her fingers tracing patterns on his skin. "You were amazing," she whispered. "You taught me well," he replied, his voice soft. They drifted to sleep, the room heavy with her perfume and their shared warmth. Morning brought soft light and a new reality. Darlene woke her head on Elliot's chest, his arm around her. She smiled, brushing hair from her face. "Good morning," she said, her voice husky. "Morning," he replied, hesitant. "You okay?" she asked, propping herself up, her hand on his chest. "I don't know," he admitted, his voice trembling. "It's okay to feel conflicted," she said, her tone reassuring. "Take it one step at a time." They lay together, the quiet intimate, until Darlene slipped into a silk robe. "I'm starving." "Breakfast?" she asked, offering her hand. He nodded, following her to the kitchen. As she cooked eggs toast fruit, she kept the conversation light, easing his tension. They ate by the window, the sunlight warm, and Darlene reached for his hand. "We need to talk," she said, her tone serious. "I know," he said, his stomach tightening. "I don't regret last night," she said, her voice steady. "I hope you don't either." "I don't," he said quietly. "But what about Mia? What about us?" "I'm not asking for decisions now," she said. "Take your time. I want you to be happy, and I'm here whatever that means." He nodded, gratitude softening his features. They cleared the table, her smile warm. "Whatever happens," she said, "we'll figure it out together." But beneath the calm, a storm brewed. George would return soon, and the truth loomed. The tides were shifting, and their story was far from over.